10,000 square feet.
Am I up? Okay. If everybody want to come on in, sit down, we'll get started. Well, it's great to see everybody here tonight. At least it's not raining now. This is a month that I created just for Dan, Furniture Month. And no, Hallmark doesn't have cards. So, I got to turn this on. Okay, announcements. As it says, I ain't going to bore you with what's in the newsletter that you have on the table. Everybody gets it in their box. So, one announcement I do have that the Moolah asked us for, they're having another raffle this year like they had last year. And we sold a bunch of tickets last year. So they're $20 each. You buy 3, you get 1 free. There's over 50 prizes that they're giving away, and it's the 27th of July, I think that's what it says. Yep, the 27th of July. You don't have to be in attendance to win, and there's some really neat prizes. It's looks like it's partly sponsored by Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's. So that's about it for the announcements. If you want the tickets, you can pick them up here on the front table and stick some money in the rubber band. That ought to be fine. New members or visitors? Do we have any tonight? All right, please stand up and we'll get a microphone to you.
Hello, I'm Jim Sallwasser. I was here about 2 months ago. Visitor, I just joined tonight.
Yeah.
My interests are, I like to learn doing turning, and also I'm interested in the Christmas toys and the tables for some organization.
All right.
If someone
Home
wants to
sweet
talk to
home.
me- someone says talk to me about that later, that's fine.
Yeah.
How you doing? My name is Paul Englert. We met some gentlemen at an estate sale about a month ago for a member who used to be a member here. He passed, so they said, come on out. So here I am. I'm getting ready to retire next year. So woodworking has always been a hobby of mine. So I just want to start learning how to make furniture and doing all kinds of stuff.
All right. Welcome.
Steve Picucci, just checking it out. Kind of moved to St. Louis a couple years ago, just looking for a thing to get involved in. So just trying to learn a little bit more about it.
All right. Yeah.
I'm Brian Hammersmeyer, mostly interested in building small furniture and things like that. I'm excited to have access to your shop in Faust Park.
All right. One more over here. You know, I thought about making a sign for new people, but I like the idea of mixing it up to where everybody sits around. Everybody can sit around and talk to other people other than just all the new people in one spot. So I zipped that idea.
My name is Eric Morris. I'm a returnee because I've been in the club before, in the guild, and moved out too far to attend your meetings and go to the shop. So now I'm back in the area and decided to jump back in.
All right, welcome back. All right. And community outreach. If you have a show and tell, if you want to come up over here on this side of the stage and get mic'd up, Okay, first up is hospital toys. Steve has collected a whole bunch of toys back there tonight. Steve, how many toys did you collect? $285 toys. All right, great guys. Yep, the hospitals have been asking for more, so keep on making them. Next, Christmas outreach. Toy build. Wayne's the chairman, and so Wayne meets the second, 2 Fridays a month, second and fourth. First and third, I knew I was going to mess that up. Fridays 10 to 2. So come on out and help. He'll probably appreciate anybody that shows up. He'll have a job for you to do. And then if every year last couple of years we've been doing the Fez, and I didn't spell it wrong, Festival of Trees. And those toys, if you're going to make them for that, they have to be turned in by the October meeting. All right. Next, Home Sweet Home. That's the table place that you were looking at, and Tom's the guy you want to talk to. Hey, Tom, you around? There he is. You got any wood and stuff for people to pick up tonight? Or are you out? You're out? No? I just don't have any for tonight. Okay.
I got 5 kits in the shack and some wood in the shack that I can get to folks when they're interested.
All right. Thank you. Was any turned in tonight? At least one. Hal. Yeah. Attaboy, Hal. Community outreach. Craig, are you here? There you are, way back over there. How's everything going? Do you still need volunteers, or?
So we've got about 7 or 8 people that are coming. The school build is actually next Wednesday. It's at West Ridge Elementary School in Baldwin. So if anybody wants to come out, it's from 8:30 to about 10:30. We're working with the 5th grade class. There's 75 kids in the class, and we always use more volunteers to help the kids. We're building tugboats, airplanes. We've got a Jeep, we've got a tow truck, and it should be a lot of fun. So definitely, you want to come on out. I'll stick around after the meeting.
All right. Now, new piece that we got coming up here, which I thought would be kind of neat, is questions and answers. If you're having problems with something, you want to know how to do something, want to find somebody who can help you with that. Little bit of stuff before we get going on the mentoring program. I thought this would be a great place to do it before the mentoring program gets up and running again. So do we have any questions? I thought of a great one on the way here tonight, and that was too long ago. I can't remember it. Oh, here we got one over here. We need a microphone.
I have some hickory logs that I wanted to get cut into lumber, and so I'm looking for sawyers. I've been calling some people, and I was wondering if anybody in this group has had that done, has a connection. So let me know. I'll be here.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the answer? So, yeah, share it. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Yeah, we got over here. We're going to get you running tonight. Throw it at him.
I'm Jerry Baines, and what is a good finish for outdoor furniture? Something that's going to last.
Say that again.
good finish for outdoor furniture? Something that can handle the weather.
He's looking for a good finish for outdoor furniture.
Well, polyurethane varnish seems to last about 2 years.
Yeah. Spar varnish.
Hi, I'm Bob Castigar.
Can you turn that up a little? I can't hear.
Hello, I'm Bob Castigar.
There. Hi, Bob.
I have an unusual question that has perplexed me for a couple of years now. How do you make a long, say 6 foot long, 2-inch on a side hexagon? Now think about this a minute. Everything is made to do square, and when you cut away one side, you're messing with 2 other sides of the hexagon. So it's really difficult to get it, and I want it to be fairly close because I was going to use it for puzzles, and I wanted them to fit together pretty tight. So if anybody's got any tricks or any old world methods on how to make hexagonal stock, like 6 foot long, I want to know how to do that.
Whoa. Crickets.
Tell me if anybody's got any ideas.
Did you search YouTube? Somebody out there probably has a jig for that. Yeah. Right. Because I did something like that, and not to give them a plug, but I went to Rockler's and they have this little couple pucks that it gives you how many sides you want, and you just use that one and you just go cut, cut, cut. But you're going in a different direction. You're going this way, not this way. Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Any other answers? All right. So I thought that we'd spend about 10, 15 minutes every meeting talking about, questions and answers and see what we can come up with. Next is show and tell. Take it away.
Everybody turned on here? Yeah. Are you hearing me? I'm Leo Weissman, and I brought a paint shaker, and I thought I'd just share with you that you don't have to make a fancy clamp. Just stick a board in there, and you can. And you hear that ball rattling around, and you won't be wondering if you shook it enough. And you can always do some more. So anyway, come up here and give it a squeeze and shake my paint for me, please.
Oh, that's great.
Well, this is the end result, but the project actually started 2 years ago with what's on the screen. Tom Tierney had a cherry tree in his front yard, decorative cherry, that needed to come down, and there was a crotch in it. Being a wood turner, you're always looking for that crotch piece. So if you want to change the slide. So after 2 years, it did in fact crack, as you would expect. You can see here up here that it's got some epoxy filling the cracks, which is nothing to be surprised about. I first turned one side, remounted it, turned the back side, and then finally the last turning was turning the back where I had mounted it there, and that's a 24-inch diameter faceplate that
Wow.
piece of wood's mounted on. And the crotch was so out of balance that I did in fact have to add some counterweight to it when I was turning it, otherwise your turning speed was so slow. You know, in turning, the answer is everybody wants to know, well, you know, how many RPMs you turn. Well, the answer is faster is always better until too fast is you reach that point.
Until it explodes.
You'll know that. And the final slide is just a picture of the finished product. So, thank you.
All right.
Grab a ticket. Lee Wandle's my name. Using scrap is the game. So, card boxes. Different types, different type of materials, but they're fun to make.
All out of scrap?
All out of scrap.
Wow.
Quarter sawn sycamore, spalted maple, crotch walnut with Paduke. So
What kind of finish?
lacquer, let's see, polyurethane, just whatever I kind of felt using. So, but they're scraps. So.
All right.
Okay, this is me. I'm the fretwork guy back again. This is a vintage old locomotive train that you'll find out, especially out in the Rockies where they do a lot of tour stuff. The pattern actually comes from Scroller, and this is a white oak live edge. I like to work with it. It's a 1/2 inch thick. The grain runs this way with the pattern and everything. Took about 20 to 30 hours to do, because after a while the old fingers started getting a little tight. So I just had to slow down on it and take my time with it. But I enjoy doing scroll art, scroll work, and this is what's called fret work. So thank you.
Alan Brown here. Last meeting, I showed a fairy house I made for Forest Park, or Faust Park, and I made another one, okay? It's another stump, okay? My wife helped me do the painting, but I did all the cutting and stuff. The hardest part of this thing was the roof, okay? It's just pieces of, cut shrub from my backyard that died off, and I tried to fix it to pieces of thin pieces of oak, so it would glue to something. And man, I tried 5-minute epoxy, I tried wood glue, I tried hot glue. I finally got it to stick. I put some string on it, okay, and then I just screwed that to the top. But it's got a 2-seat swing and a ladder on it. Okay.
Take that. Working? You can hear me? Okay. Bob Danner. Some of you guys have seen me in the shop working on a set of chairs for the last year or so. And in the middle of selling a home and retiring and moving and all, the project kind of slipped behind. So I'm about 3 chairs into a 6-chair dining room project. I only wanted 4. The wife says build 6. So we don't have 4 friends, so I don't know why we need 6 chairs. Some of you might recognize this as a George Nakashima design. I think traditionally George built them out of walnut and hickory. This is cherry and ash. His wife likes cherry, so I decided to go with the cherry. It looks really orangey with the neon, the fluorescent lights. It looks a lot different in a dining room with more natural lighting. Finish is just linseed oil and lacquer. I learned to build this from a guy named Dale Bernard over in Paoli, Indiana. So I took a class with Dale to learn how to build the chair. built all the jigs so that I could build the whole set myself. I was telling Dick it's probably 10 or 12 different jigs to build this, because each one of these joints, like the legs, left side out, left side in, right side out, right side in. Those are all different jigs for each and every joint. So, but proud of them.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's raffle time. Hey Joe, I don't have any cards. So it looks like we're going to have 4 things to raffle off tonight. 2 boards and 2 cards.
Does this clip? Yeah.
One.
Hello? Okay. All right, you're right. We have 2 additional items. So we've got the basic reward cards. Keep in mind, there's an expiration date on these. So, and then we have a Purple Heart board. And this is heavy. I don't know, this has got to be 20 pounds at least. And this was donated by UPIC. There's a card on there to kind of mention that, but they're one of our sponsors, and they donated that. And then you said somebody said this was Red Oak? Yes. Yeah, yep. Okay. And that was out. Wayne, can you tell me, do we know who provided this?
Gentleman over in Illinois.
Yeah, he donated. We've got another one that we'll have next month, I guess, from them as well. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so, good. Someone that didn't buy a ticket, that can be me. And so, all right. First 3 numbers everybody's got is 255 or 055. Last 3 digits 247. Looky there, we got a winner. Oh, we'll verify that. All right, what would you like? A card, all right. There you go.
Where's those cards from?
Did I not say Rockler? I apologize, Rockler. And so, yes. They too are a sponsor, and they donated these to us. And so, all right. Can you draw one? Just one? Okay. Last 3 digits 364. Woo! All right.
Hey.
That board looks great.
Which one?
The Purple Heart.
Okay. I said 364. Yeah. Wait.
Oh.
You have 264. All I can say is don't look at me. 364. Now I know I double checked these tickets. Okay. What would you like?
He's
what
taking
would you
a board.
like? Oh, he wants the board. Okay. Can you draw me a ticket before you go?
You bet.
There you go.
I get close as I'm getting to it.
Yeah, who knows? Wouldn't that be interesting? All right, last 3 digits. 326. Look at that, you gotta be sitting at this table. What would you like? Card, okay. Okay, and you get to draw the last number. Draw the last number. All right, thank you. Last number is 357. Okay. What are the odds of that? Okay, you don't want the board? Oh, he's going to pass on the board, all right. Well, you can draw another number.
I have too much worry.
He's got too much wood. That's like too many clamps. What are you talking about? 296.
Way in the back. All right.
All right, we've got a board for you. After we verify the number.
Yeah.
296, the board's yours. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for supporting the guild. I'm done.
All
right. That's not too bad, that one.
Okay, Jay. Oh. Take all the time you want.
Testing. There's that. I want you to know it's my distinct pleasure and certainly an honor to introduce to you, as he needs no introduction, my good friend Daniel Lender, sitting right over here. I want to make sure I get it right compared to the newsletter. So his talk tonight is going to be, on paper at least, building an heirloom bedroom set in the Mission style. Now, I know a lot of you probably know Dan because he has worked with various nationally known people to set up the Superstar program, and he's done a wonderful job with that. So I think most of you know him or have become aware of him during that time. I've known him for, I think, a lot longer than that. I don't know exactly when we met, but at least 4 years ago, I think. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much. And 3 years ago, he was elected to be a director on the board, and he's done that for 3 years, and he's just started his fourth and last year. 2 years ago, it was where we officially, I think, when we started talking for the first time about his, I would call it somewhat of a dream project. Is that correct? And, you know, when I had a dream project, it was to build a Wooten desk. And it never worked because I, unlike Dan, have no ability to create. And so I gave up and bought a very nice Wooten desk that's an antique. So Daniel certainly does not have that missing edge in his repertoire. So he got with me sometime, and he actually came out to my house. And we talked and talked and talked, and I was pretty amazed at his what he had planned to build an entire bedroom suite. Is quite a project. And over the course of the last 2 years, he's kept in touch with me, and we've talked back and forth and so on. And I hope you all got the newsletter and did read it, and were able to see the pictures that are somewhat like this, but I think a little bit nicer even in the newsletter, to see the either completed or nearly completed things that consist of this bedroom set and so on. They're absolutely amazing. So he kept me appraised of what was going on, and I continued to be amazed at what was going on and so on, and became more and more impressed with his work. In fact, I say with no trouble saying it that I think Dan is one of the best woodworkers in the guild. I really mean that, though, and I'm proud to call him a good friend. I think that was it. So the one year ago, he actually a year ago decided that he would be wanting to present his work at a meeting like this. So we planned on it being when I was still president, and it was going to be, in fact, in March, and a change had to happen for unforeseen circumstances. So if you're wondering why I'm doing the introduction, that's why, though. So Dan.
We're going to try something a little different here this evening. I'm going to drive this presentation from my own laptop because it has notes. All right. Thank you, Jay, for that introduction. And it was I'm blushing as a result of it. So thank you. And I want to thank the guests for coming this evening out to be with us. And so a little bit more about me. I've been with the Guild for 6.5 years, and probably more seriously been into woodworking about 13 years ago. And so I want to lead you through my journey of building this bedroom set. Sometime back, I approached my wife and said I wanted to build a bedroom set, and she knew it was an ambitious project, but I said I want to build it for you. So what style do you want to be about, or what inspiration should I be looking at or to inspire me on this? So we looked at the computer and the internet, and she said she liked mission style. So that's what this is about this evening. So this journey was not alone. I reached out to many. So the first column are woodworkers. They're all professionals. And so I either read their books, read their publications, I attended online class, and I sent emails to a few of them and communicate and talk about aspects of this project as it applied to my build. The second column are those of you who are still supporting me. We're patient and allowing me to ask questions and help with finding solutions. And the third column are people who supported uniquely. Joe Mindell. Joe is a local Luther here in the St. Louis area. I sat down with him, and we spent one full morning talking about inlay veneer, mother of pearl, finishing, all aspects as it applied to my build. And because I truly admire what the Luthers have, what they do, and I wanted to pick their brain, particularly on the inlay and working with mother of pearl. And Ron there, Ron is a woodworker from Indiana. At the time I was planning to build this, lumber was hard to come by. It was in the COVID era, and there's a lumber yard in eastern Indiana called Frank Miller. And I called, Ron was going to help me acquire what I needed for white oak, so I was going to drive there. And at the time, Frank Miller had in January, he had 132,000 board feet of quarter sawn white oak. When I called up there in February to make this trip, he says, you're going to be wasting your time. All we have left is 20,000 board feet, and it'll be gone by the time you get here. So they totally underestimated the market at that time. And locally, I couldn't find anyone that could support what I wanted, because I wanted 4-quarter, 5-quarter, 6-quarter, and 8-quarter, and I couldn't find anybody that would supply all that dimensional sizing. But then later I went to Scholars in southern Missouri. They said they could support it, but they would only sell it in board feet. How many board feet of each quarter do you want? And I had concept sketches, but nothing detailed. So I went back and basically doubled my numbers, and then called them and told them how many board feet I want, not knowing the width or the length of each board, or any of the boards. But I said, I gotta ask, on my 8-quarter, I want certain minimum widths and minimum lengths, and I only want 4 boards, and they agreed to that. So here's are the requirements that I worked to in getting ready for this bedroom set. My wife wanted she wanted mission style, so using mission style, pretty much you expect to build from quarter sawed white oak. Along with that, she said, please build a bed that I can tuck the sheets in on the sides. And she also we wanted a mattress and a box springs for our bed. So it had to accommodate both of those. If you go looking at what's on the YouTube and some of the articles, they only accommodate a mattress. And in the construction, I wanted to try my hand at mortise and tenon joinery and dovetails. Up until this time, I did very little of that kind of woodworking, and I didn't want any plywood. So even the drawer bottoms, there's no plywood. It's all shop-made material. And for drawer slides, we both wanted the ease of opening and closing, so we used undermount drawer slides. But I also wanted some uniqueness, so I wanted to add a motif that was fitting for all the pieces. So that's as Jay spoke to. I came out and talked to Jay in his shop about inlaying of veneer and how to go about doing that, and picking his brain. And that's why another reason why I went to the Luther. And so this build here uses black veneer and mother of pearl, and I did explore the use of black epoxy, but I chose not to do that. And then for the bed, I saw where there's this fancy joint called, I didn't know what the name of it was at the time, but it's a hidden joint. And I like the idea of using a bed bolt to hold the side rails to the legs, but I didn't want to see the head of that bed bolt. So you'll see later in these slides, there's a unique joint out there that now I've found out that it's called a housed mortise and tenon joint. And a man by the name of Jeremy Zietz, he used it in one of the Fine Woodworking magazine articles, but I used it as an inspiration. So, and then I don't have enough years in me to learn how to do dovetails the correct way and make them look nice. So all of my dovetails are made by using the table saw. And I have a few jigs that I made for that. And then I wanted to use spray finishing. I have a Infinity Q5 spray rig, which does a pretty nice job. So all of this, all the pieces for the bed and the chest of drawers and nightstands were all finished prior to assembly in most part, and the finish was sprayed. So I want to present to you the Cynthia collection. By now you've noticed that SketchUp is a tool that I use for the design process. I use it for most of my designs. I would be too lengthy to present all 4 furniture pieces to you this evening. So we're going to focus our time on the bed build. And the use of the table saw to cut dovetails I will be presenting in July. But to show you a sneak peek, here is the picture of the final nightstand. And like the chest of drawers, it has a crest rail at the top, corbels on the side, mortise hinges, a negative space profile for the lower rails and then on the side rails, and a motif in the door panel. And the more radical those rays, the more my wife likes it for the quarter sawed wood. So here's the dresser, one of the dressers, the one that's complete. And it's very similar to the nightstand. And then the backs on both of the pieces are made from poplar wood with half-lap joinery. And here's a picture of 9 sets of drawers for the chest of drawers, all dovetail joinery cut using the table saw. Now the motif was made, or now we'll talk about the motif. And it was made using veneer lines, veneer circles, and small round mother of pearl. Here's my tools, primary tools in which I use. So I used a plunge router bushing guide, 3 different collets, and 4 different router bits, and a plug cutter. And all of this I have laying out over here, so after this presentation, please come take a look. So the veneer lines are made from using 3 sheets of the black veneer, and they were glued together. The black veneer is poplar wood and dyed all the way through, and each sheet prior to gluing is 1/42 of an inch thick. The veneer dots were made from gluing a single sheet of veneer, glue it right to the newspaper. And then I cut the dots by using the plunge cutter installed into my router. So now we're going to get started. So I drew a center line on my door panel, and then I located my, I'll call it a circle jig here, located it to that, and then I put 3 small blocks around it as reference blocks or datums, because this circle jig is going to be on and off a number of times through the build. And then I put a 1/8" router bit and plunged it 1/8 inch deep to put holes on the center of each of those locations. And then I removed this circle jig and drew center lines I made reference lines between the holes. Now keep in mind I used an 1/8 inch router bit, and the veneering is only going to be 1/16 inch wide. Okay, so now I located fences, which I just used pieces of MDF, and they're offset 1/4 inch from the drawn center line, because I used a 1/2 inch diameter bushing guide. So then the grooves will be made with a 1/16 of an inch router bit. The initial start and stop of the holes, they'll go into that 1/8 inch diameter hole, so that when I make my initial plunge and I pull out of the wood, it's going into space, not into the wood. And that way then I can assure myself that I won't break my router bit. And then my depth I made in 1/32 of an inch increments. So each pass took two times through that, so that again you won't break that router bit, because the router bit is I think it's only a single fluted bit, and it's pretty small. So you take your time, but you go from hole to hole. And you do that. You have to do it for non-intersecting lines, and then as you see here, the picture on the left, you'll do those 3, and you'll put in your veneer. I glued it in using Starbond clear glue. I experimented with glue and black, and some of the black migrated into the grain, so it's just stuck with clear.
I'm going to point out that.
Oh, right here. I glued these in. I got a pointer. So with the clear glue, and then I cleaned it off using a chisel. And after these 3 are done, then the second setup will do this line right here. Can't move that well. From here to here. And then you rinse and repeat, and then you do the long line across there. So then you'll have your 5 lines, clean that off with chisel, and then sand it lightly with 150 grit sandpaper. You can see these blocks are still, my reference blocks are still on there. So then I put my circle guide back on there. I don't have a picture of that. And I put in a 10 millimeter diameter router bit, and I spot face, and I had to experiment, what's the best depth for this? Well, in the experiment, I found out that my router bit was just a straight fluted, double fluted router bit, and it left the bottom of the hole concave slightly. It's hard to see, but it's slight. And the black dots, as I pulled them off that newspaper, excuse me, this was convex. The black dots were concave, so they're going in the opposite direction. And it was hard to get the black dots to be flat, and it was hard to get the hole, the spot face, to be flat. But you needed flat surfaces because you needed 100% glue up. And so I spot faced these, the material thickness plus 1/256 of an inch. And that seemed to work out the best. So if everything was ideal, it'd be just a slight subflush. But it's sometimes the edges of the black dots would curl just above it, but there was enough material there to sand off. But the dots are only 0.24 thick, so there's not that much there to sand. Anyway, so spot face with the 10 millimeter diameter router bit, and then you could put all those in again with clear, glue those in with the clear CA glue, and then lightly sand with 220 grit sandpaper. And you try not to get the glue on the dots, because then you have to sand the veneer, and veneer is again not very thick. So then in your plunge router, I put in a 1/4 inch upcut spiral router, a downcut spiral router bit. And this is where you see why it's important to have that 100% glue up of that dot, because it doesn't leave much of black material around here. That's roughly a 1/16 of an inch between inner diameter and outer diameter. So if it's not 100% glued, it's coming off with that router. And but you know, so then in figuring out the depth for this mother of pearl, the mother of pearl has machine marks on it, and those got to get sanded off, but not individually. They get sanded off all at the same time after they're glued in. So I chose to set the depth of my router just the thickness of the mother of pearl, which is 2 millimeters, and then you can sand that off. And I use a hard, just a sanding block, wooden block, to help me surface that, get the surface flush, because you have all of this veneer in the mother of pearl, and some of it might be a little higher than the others, because I'm trying to work with tolerances that are greater than what wood will allow. So there's the finished product. Thanks. So it took, just to do 2 panels by hand like this takes 8 hours. So that's after you think you know what you're doing. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the bed. So as I said, I was not able to find in any books or magazines or on YouTube a design that would accommodate a mattress and a box spring. So I had to do this, figure out what the design for this. So I wanted the headboard and the footboard to be as asymmetrical as possible. So, for 2 reasons. I like the look of it, plus also then the spindles would be the same length. So I didn't have to build, different parts in that reason. So here, the headboard and the footboard are identical, with the exception the legs are a little longer on the headboard. The headboard has another rail that goes across the bottom that's not visible in here. And then on the footboard, it has this negative profile that's on there that's also on the other pieces of furniture. And then also, in moving my design up and down with matches and box springs, because of that negative profile, you didn't want to walk into the room and see your box springs. So it had to go up high enough, but you didn't want it to go too high, because then you can't get into bed. So there was some give and take and compromises in the design here. So here's the house mortise and tenon joinery. And I know this looks like a lot, but I'll walk you through, and then I have pictures of the build. So I think it'll come clear what it's supposed to do as we go through this presentation. So this mauve piece is the leg, and the blue is the rail. So I put a mortise into the leg to accept the rail. Now the yellow is a tenon, or it starts out as a loose tenon, but later it gets glued into the leg, the mauve piece. So there's a mortise in the leg to accept the tenon, and then there's a mortise into the rail to accept the tenon. So the 2 mortises, and I'll show you later, are concentric mortises. Now to pull those all together, you use a bed bolt. So that's what this green is, just a passageway to get the bolt in through the rail, and then it goes in through the tenon. And then this cross piece right here is to get you some wrench access. So everybody acts like they know what I'm talking about. So we're going to get started. Now I brought all the tooling this evening, and this is my mortising jig that I used throughout this whole build, but it's not set up with what I'm talking about right now. But it's set up right now to do standard mortise and tenons. But I'm using my mortising jig in this case only as a holding fixture. So you could do what I'm about to show you on these concentric mortises on a bench. But it's easier by using my mortising jig, because it holds the parts nicely. So right across here, this is the leg. And so then on that leg, I clamp my first template on there, or my first jig. And that jig then, I use a router guide bushing in here, and it allows me to put a mortise that's 5/8 of an inch wide by 4.5 long by 1 1/4 deep. And then this mortise is the mortise in the leg that's going to accept the tenon. Okay. So then there's the first mortise. And I use masking tape when I'm working with white oak because it's difficult to ride on white oak and see your reference lines. But what's most important here is the center line of this mortise. So now we have the tenon in the leg that accepts, or excuse me, the mortise in the leg that accepts the tenon. So now we're going to pick up this little detail here, this tool, and this is a representation of the tenon. So I'm going to slip that into that mortise. So the rest of this just is on top of the leg. This piece right here is just the handle, so I could put it in and take it out. And then I'll show you what this piece of this, what this represents in the next picture. But again, this is just, so you slip that tenon of the detail into the mortise, and now you put on your third jig. And that sits over top of this piece here. And then you pull this plug out, and now you're set up to route concentric mortises. Because you lined up to the very first mortise, and you put a plug in there, and you set the second jig on top of that plug, pull the plug out, it's all set now for the second mortise. You see on this picture, I write my notes on all my templates, you know, what bushings and what depth I have to, and what size is the opening and what size will it produce. And then I also have reference down here, like this is on the inside. So just so that you don't make a mistake later on. So now here I routed, and I got 2 concentric mortises in this leg. Okay, so now that those joints are done, now I make all the remaining of the mortises. I just want to show here, I'm using my mortising jig, and I generally write the depth on my product, on my wood, to eliminate air. And what I do is this is an 1 1/4 deep mortise, but I will route that to 1 5/16. For this build, I added an extra 1/16 of an inch to accept any extra glue that I might have during the glue up process. It's got a place to go. And that way also, that if you have an 1 1/4 tenon going into an 1 1/4 mortise, theoretically they're going to occupy the same space, and you may not get a good fit up on the shoulders. So that's my standard shop practice. So now we're going to start building the corbels. So first I built a template, and all this template has to it is just the profile of the corbel, and I'm able to get 2 corbels out of one piece of one board. And then this is showing the routering. So I used double-sided tape and put that on the corbel that I first cut out with the bandsaw. And I like using the compression bits because they have a bearing on both the top and the bottom, and it makes for a safe cut on your router table. So first cut, I use the upper bearing, and I mill approximately halfway. Then I flip the whole assembly over, raise the bit, and use the bottom bearing. So that way you avoid climb cutting. And if you ever worked with white oak, you know you can grab and throw if you're not careful. So there, when it's complete, you have 1 template, 4 corbels with grooves, 4 splines, and then the splines are allowed for a good joint and an easy installation. So that's what I use to attach the corbel to the leg. So this is gluing the corbel to the leg. I used the cutoff when I originally cut the corbels out, and I lined that red little shop aid with cork as to not damage the corbel. And this is how I cut all my tenons. I made I made this tool just as the start of this bedroom set build, and it's to help make all my tenons. And on the dressers and nightstand, it had double or twin tenons, and I use this setup the same, but there you use shims to help you with that. And I used this same mortising jig with those doubles, so you can offset the tenons by just using a shim, so you don't have to change your setups. You only have one setup, and the shim is what alters. And if you need to tweak it, then you can use tape, so you don't have to move your fence. Anyway, so then you have to know the restriction or height of your shop, because this shows one of the rails. I'm cutting the tenons, and I'm missing the ceiling by a ½ inch. But I had to clamp the light out of the way. And then here's one of the rails where I'm cutting the tenon shoulders on my table saw, and so it's being held there by my workmate, Black & Decker workmate, to assist me in that. And then that's some of the tenons after I cleaned them up with the chisel. So, okay, the bed has 30 spindles on the headboard and 30 spindles on the footboard, and I wanted to have mortises. Well, I wasn't crazy enough to use a mortise machine because these mortises are 5/8 across, and so what I chose is to make dental work. So I cut a groove in each of the rails, and then I have 8 dental strips, and those dental strips are mate matched to go into that into the respective rails, and I glued those in. So there's the spindles with their tenons, and then off to the side here are the rails with the mortises. So as I alluded to, these spindles are 7/8 by 7/8 square, and then the tenons are 5/8 by 5/8 square, and they're 3/8 of an inch long, and the mortises are 9/16 inch deep. And I wanted a snug fit, but I made them too snug because they fit in there. And then I had to go back on the table saw again and take off like 1/256 of an inch on all 4 sides on both ends, because I forgot that when you have many pieces during a glue up, you have to give you a little more allowance in those mortises to allow that many pieces to come together in a short amount of time. And so I didn't want my mortises to rattle, but so I had to go back at it again. So I made 66 spindles to yield 60 spindles, because you pick out the pretty ones. All right, so now I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. I'm going to put the mortise in the end of the side rail, and this mortise is to accept that tenon. So I'm using exactly the same tool that I use on the leg, but it's shimmed, and you can't see the shim, but there's a shim back here so that I can center that mortise on the end of that rail. And so this is a 5/8 inch diameter wide mortise, but it actually it's very easy to mortise that into end grain. But I started with a 3/8, then a ½ inch, and then I went up to 5/8, because taking out 5/8 inch all at once is way too much to do. Plus the chips build up in your mortise, and then that will try to force that router to move on you sideways. But 3/8 is a very good diameter to start with. So there's the mortises on the ends of the rails, and the other ends look identical. Then I had to build the mortise for the bolt to go in, so I built another template. And that T part at the top of the T is to give me wrench clearance later on. Then I wanted a cap or a cover to go over that bolt so I wouldn't have to look at it later on. And so this is another template to build that recess for that cap. And so that's Then after I have the opening for the bolt and the recess for the cap, I numbered all my pieces with a Roman numeral to help in the assembly. And then I added that same nomenclature onto the legs, and there you can see the concentric mortises in the leg. And you'll see a little circle in the middle there. I made a little clearance for that bolt. The math said I was good, but I wanted to make sure I was real good, you know. So, and then here's the tenons. So each one is marked on both sides, and the marking is on the top side. So that way I could mate the tenon to the leg. And this picture also shows I have what they call weld nuts, and I epoxied those to the tenons to accept that bolt later on. And then for a belt and suspenders approach, I added another dowel just in case I broke the glue bond between the tenon and the leg. The dowel will give me some little more support there. And this dowel will later be covered up with the rail that goes in there, and so you don't even see it. But it's at the lower part of the bed. So there we have the 4 legs are complete. Now we're going to talk a little bit about finish. So I applied all my stains and dyes using blue shop towels because they're lint-free. So the first coat went on was a transient medium brown dye, and it was mixed with denatured alcohol. And I had a choice of denatured alcohol or water, and if I chose water, I would have to first pre-raise the grain with water and sand that off. And so I chose denatured alcohol because it minimally raises the grain. You only have to scuff it lightly, so you can skip that pre-raised grain process. And another thing, denatured alcohol flashes fast, so you can put the next coat on soon. But because it flashes off fast, you got to be conscious of when you apply it, because you want wet edges between where you're wiping it on. Otherwise, you're going to have to take care of that and wipe on some more. Now you're making it more brown, but you need to have the whole surface wet on the same side. So now, after the transient dye has dried, then I added a seal coat. And you can see here, I bought this Zinsser seal coat, and it comes at a 2-pound cut, and I wanted a 1.5-pound cut. So I added denatured alcohol to reduce that. And I use that as a seal coat. And then I want to put on a glaze. So this glaze I put on this General Finish Antique Walnut gel stain. So wipe that on with the blue shop towel. And then after that cured, I put on another coat of a 1.5 pound seal coat, which is 100% de-wax shellac. And then for my final coat, I told you I sprayed. Well, Sherwood-Williams formulates a lot of their products just for spraying. So this is Sherwood-Williams Sherwood Kim Aqua Plus. And you go, what is that? I call it waterborne lacquer. You know, their literature only calls it Sherwood Kim Aqua Plus, but it's waterborne lacquer. So I put 2 or 3 coats based on where the part was. And here shows, again, I want to express, I did all the parts individually before glue up. But on the side panels, on the nightstand and the dresser, I did all the panels individually. They went all the way through the second coat. Then I did the side frame. I don't have a picture here, but I did the side frame minus the panel, and I did the dye stain. Then I glued it together. Then I did the seal coat, gel stain, and seal coat. Now I have that separate. Well, on the bed, I pretty much did all of the rails separate, the finishing. And so here, everything had to be masked off, and the holes had to be masked. So this was just part of that. So I sprayed these, then you flip it and spray and flip, spray, flip. Then you take those 30 down, rinse and repeat, and do the other 30. And then my wife was there with me, and she was a big help through all of this, because she would move the parts as I'm finishing, and then on the side panels and some of these rails on the bed, they're big, so she was always at the other end and helping me rotate it and flip it. And then ideally, I either sprayed inside, in my garage, excuse me, or I sprayed outside. But I have a clean room. It's called the kitchen. So all the parts got carried into the kitchen, and that's where then the finish dried to where you can then spray it again. So she helped either open the door or hold the other end. So, okay, now comes glue up. So again, the easy part's done. And here I used the Tight Bond hide glue. And some of you were at Superstar Weekend and you heard Logan Whitmer. Well, I can tell you that I was using Tight Bond hide glue when Logan Whitmer was in middle school. So, so he didn't dream that up first. But this is a great glue because it has an extended time. I believe you have about 25 minutes working time, or 15 minutes working time, excuse me, which is a lot longer than the Tight Bond 3. Also, using this hide glue, it doesn't swell the fibers on your tenons or the inside on the mortise, and it acts like a lubricant. The viscosity is real small, so that your tenon will slip nicely into that mortise. And then if you don't get all of the glue that left on the surface, with me building this white oak furniture, it's a darker color, so it kind of blends in. But that was my wife's job. She did a great job, thank you, of cleaning off the glue, the excess glue as I'm putting in the next part. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead here. The first time I assembled the footboard, it took me an hour. And I knew that wasn't going to work. So I had to come up with ways to reduce my time. Well, one of the ways was get the spindles to fit a little looser, or a little more, loose. But I still wanted tight-fitting spindles. And then another process was when I glue in the spindles, I chose only to put the glue in the mortise, and I put no glue on the tenons, because that really glue was not needed to make it structural reasons. It was only there to keep that tenon from rattling, or the spindle from rattling, which I had very little rattle, but in case I had my granddaughter in the bed and she kicked the spindle, I didn't want it to rattle. So that was one of the ways in which I reduced it, and I'm going to show you other ways. See this white, it's a white pine straps. I'll point that out to you in the next chart. But those were important in this glue up. Another thing I did is this center panel is where my motif is on, and I labeled that so as not to glue it in the wrong orientation, because the motif is only on one side. Yeah. Oh, when only putting the glue in the mortise and not on the tenon, you have by far less glue squeeze out, so there's less cleanup. And that was a big advantage there. So now I numbered every spindle and had a reference mark. You can see it on the sides here, little line. Oh, it's an orientation mark, because I wanted the quarter sawed surface to be either facing in or out, and the plain sawed wood to be facing towards the next spindle, because you really don't see that when you're looking at the bed. So each one had a number, because some of these tenons were tweaked with they were paired with a chisel to get a nice fit in there. Well, as you can see, then I pulled up this strap, and one of them, I clamped it to the top of each one of these, and that goes all the way across. Because when I lay this down, this assembly right now is upside down. But when I lay it down to bring in this other rail over here on top, you got 31 mortise and tenon joints you got to pull together. So this strap will help me, because it'll lay those spindles down and keep them approximately in the same orientation they are while they're being pushed into the mortise in this location. Another thing I did to help me with this assembly is, right now I have the upper rail attached to what I call a subcap. And I chose not to glue that. I chose to screw it. I used 9 woodworking screws. And the reason behind that is right in this area right here is where the leg goes. So theoretically, the leg, the subcap, and these tenons of this rail all occupy the same space, or could occupy the same space. And during glue up, you go, what do I do? You know, I'm already into my working time by putting in 30 spindles. So I thought I could loosen some of these screws that attach this subcap to this rail and push down on it enough so I can get that leg onto these tenon right here. Now I never had to do that, but it was kind of like a fallback plan if I ever needed that. So that's why I didn't glue that on there. So again, I think I said for the footboard, I had 66 mortise and tenon joints in one glue up, and on the headboard I had 68. So here it's laid down, and I clamped it to my assembly table over here. Oops, excuse me. And clamped it down, and I'm going to bring this rail into all these spindles. So I chose to design this center panel. That tenon is a 1/4 inch longer than what the tenons are on these spindles. Because when you pull this rail into it, it's going to first seat into the center panel, and then that squares this rail with this assembly. So that way it's not in a racking orientation. So in theory then, all of these spindles tenons are aligned to its mating mortise. And you see I got these straps down here, and that straps hold those spindles up. So they're either a 32nd below the hole or right in line with the hole. You don't want them higher in the hole, because then you got to try to push, you got to mess with this rail, and that's too heavy. Because then, and again, you got 31 tenons you're trying to get into 31 mortises. So these straps hold those spindles up. So that was the cat's meow right there. those two things. Make this tenon longer, and then make these straps to hold the spindles up. So there is the footboard assembly clamped, and I had to raise the whole assembly up to get these two clamps underneath it to apply the necessary pressure to make sure I had all the shoulders tight against the rails. And then again, I used the cutoff that came from cutting this negative profile surface. I put cork on that to help with that glue up. And here's the headboard. And the headboard, the only thing different, it has one additional rail that had to go on there. So yeah, we did that in 2 different days because it was too much to do in one day. And then after the glue dry, pull the clamps off and add a felt pad so it'd help protect our home's floor. So this, I didn't take good pictures, but I'll try to explain what I'm doing here. So now I said we have the footboard completely assembled with the exception of the top cap. You know, my design has a cap, which is the pretty board on top, and then a subcap. So this picture right here, this is the subcap and here's one of those screws I was talking to you about. Well, what I did prior to gluing is I drilled a hole into the subcap and then partially into this cap. This cap is just laying there for this picture. So these two were mated together, drilled a 1/4 inch hole, and then when I took it apart, I put in a 1/4 inch dowel into the cap. So that way, when I glued the cap to the subcap, all I had to do was align the dowels and clamp it. I didn't have to do any measuring or use any gauge blocks for offsets to properly center the cap to the subcap. All I had to do was align the dowels. And then I positioned those dowels so that I didn't inadvertently put the headboard cap on the footboard and the footboard cap on the headboard. Because the boards were chosen so that the pretty board is the one you see when you enter the bedroom. So here's the finished headboard. And then there's the finished headboard and footboard. And then now we're going to pull the rail into the leg. And to aid me with that, I put a piece of blue tape here. And that's an indicator to know when that sidewheel is fully seated into that leg so that it didn't over-tighten the bolt. You can kind of see there. The top here of this rail will go right into there, and then this bolt here will go into that hole that was drilled there. And when I drilled the hole into this side rail to accept this bolt, I used its respective tenon as a drill guide, just in case that hole was off slightly. And I didn't know if I could over drill those holes or not. So it's a 1/4 inch hole with a 1/4 inch bolt in this whole assembly. And you can envision the bed is roughly 7 feet long, and your floor is never level, and it all came together. So then after the rail is into the headboard and tightened, I put a cover plate on that just because. And then I cut dovetails into my slats to hold the mattress and box springs. And those were made so that any slat can fit into any dovetail. So now the bed is ready for the box spring and mattress. And box spring and mattress put on there. Now the bed has been made, pun intended. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to. Yes, Bob.
You need a microphone? Okay.
Commercial break.
My question is a simple one. When you stained everything with that mother of pearl on there,
Yes.
how did you
Oh.
keep the stain from affecting the mother of pearl?
Good. That was some steps I didn't address. So, okay, so you have raw wood with the mother of pearl and the veneer. I wiped on a coat of dye stain, and then my dye stain was the vehicle to transfer that was denatured alcohol. So I put denatured alcohol on a Q-tip, and I wiped each one of those mother of pearl so that, because the sample I have over here, I did not do that. And you could see some of that shellac on there. And so it colors just a slight color of the color of natural shellac. So every time I put any dye, any stain, or any shellac on there, I wiped it with a Q-tip. Now, I did not wipe it when I put on my lacquer.
Why did you select gel stain as a stain?
Well, the short answer is because I consulted with Jeff Jewett. Jeff is a professional woodworker, and he's an expert into finishes. And Jeff has posted online some recipes, if you will, schedules, and that's what he used. But when you seal it with shellac, now it's all sealed. So anything you put next, it's just going to ride on that surface of that shellac. So gel stain is a good stain to make a glaze of that. So that's, and then
Better glaze?
Yeah, for a glaze appearance or look. Yes. Yeah. Now, if you want to put the stain right on the raw wood, I probably wouldn't use gel stain. But in this case, I want to use it as a glaze. So that's, yeah. Yes, sir, Bill.
Did you use any grain filler on your oak?
Okay, I consulted with Jeff Jewett on that too, because I thought it'd be neat to have a glass surface on top of the nightstand and chest of drawers. And Jeff said no. He says if you're building mission style, that is not what he would be using for mission style. And then another reason why I didn't do it, because Jeff also posted
a procedure of how he might do it on another piece of furniture. And he was using different chemicals that weren't the same chemicals to put on the finish. And I thought, wow, I'm going to have to really experiment here to see if one would, if I put the sealer on, if it would pull that out when I put the dye on. And Jeff said, don't do it at all. And so I just chose not to do it.
Beautiful work. Beautiful work.
Pardon? Yeah. No. It's being used. But you notice in the design, all the pieces had, I shouldn't, let me get up here. Here it shows a lot of motif on all this. I did not put it on these drawers here for two reasons. One, after I just put it on these panels, I didn't want that the veneer and the mother of pearl to be so dominant as you're looking at the piece of furniture. I wanted you to look at the furniture and then you say, oh yeah, now I see something different. So that's number one. And then the second reason was, when I was building this chest of drawers, I was humming right along, cutting my grooves for that veneer, and it was coming out perfect. But when I spot faced for that black dot and the mother of pearl, I had to throw them away because I had my router slipped on me, the setting on it. Yeah. And so I go, I can't do that. Oh, these boards here, I designed it so it's a single board. And they're 8 1/4 inch wide, and wide quarter sawed wood is hard to find. And then to get a nice looking board is even harder to find, and they're very expensive. I think I went to 5 different lumber yards to find enough boards for these 2 chest of drawers. And this one here, I got the bottom 2 drawers out of one piece, and these 4 drawers here out of another second piece. So I said, I'm not going to do it. But so, you know, I was afraid I would ruin the board and I have to throw the board away. And maybe I could rotate it, but if the backside had a little knot, then I had to deal with the knot. But it looks better without that. But this chest of drawer, which I have started, it's not complete. It's going to be built probably from 3 different boards, so it's not going to look as nice when you're looking at the wood grain. But as my wife would say, it's wood. Yeah. You know, so you know, she's polite on that.
Beautiful job, bud.
Thank you. Pardon?
What size? Queen?
Yeah, it's a queen size, right? Yeah, and so
Plus a vest for sheets.
I know she's picky. I mean, when I showed those requirements, that was the abridged version. It's so we have 3 queen size beds in our house. So I measured all of those, and then I read literature. I went to books. You know, they make beds for queen size mattress fitting, and so you know, you get. And then I went to furniture stores and measured them, and you get like 12 different sizes. Well, I had to build this to one that worked the first time. So anyway, so that's what I did. But it looks good. It fits in nice.
How many total hours did you spend on just the bed?
You know, when I started building furniture, I have a log, what I do each day and how many hours. I stopped doing that. And then I also started dating my jig templates. I stopped doing that because stuff has birthdays now. So I don't know. Because this bedroom set, you're building it as you go along. And I made subtle changes to design to accommodate the wood that I had also. So you make those changes. And then I'm using my SketchUp models as my master blueprint, if you will, in case I ever go back. Well, I look at it again to build the next piece. So it takes time. And it's my hobby, it's not a job. Yeah.
How hard is it to use SketchUp?
Well, you gotta be, I don't have an issue, but you gotta be able to think in 3D. SketchUp is made to draw in 3D. It can draw in 2D very easily, but it's for 3D. Now, I don't use the latest version that's out there. I use a free version, but it's version 2017, which is the calendar year in which it came out. And SketchUp no longer supports that version, but that version has a lot of bells and whistles. The most current version for free, they removed a lot of bells and whistles on it. And so, you know, it's still I think it's still a good tool to use. Now, if you want to go to the professional tools, they're nice tools. A lot of architects use those. But SketchUp is a good tool for woodworking. I know other people use other software, and that's fine too. But this is one that I learned on, and it's one where I can pick it up 6 months from now, and I don't use all the shortcuts that are built into a lot of software. You know, like Control H or Control L or something like that. I don't use any of that. I use the toolbar that has all the menus, and I pick out that. And the reason why is because I may not use it again for 6 months, and so I won't forget. I know how to use it. So, but you know, I like it. The version I have, I can print out full-size plans. So, like if I want to make one of my templates, I can print in full size and then tape that down and then cut it out. So, yes, Bob.
Is the motif a known motif, or is that something you came up with?
I came up with it. I don't have a picture of it, but I inherited a small dresser, and had I had another hour, I would have brought in the introduction of this. But it's a Lakeside piece of furniture, and Lakeside came in before or after the Victorian era, but before the arts and craft era. And Mr. Lakes, so I have this dresser, and instead of using the black veneer dots and mother of pearl, they use a what do you call it? Carving by chip carving. That's what they use, and that just I looked at that all the time. That's where my laptop is at, in that same room, and that just kind of inspired me to this. Yes.
So, knowing how difficult it is to do a glue up with maybe 6 slats and so on, I have trouble believing that you and Cindy, just 2 of you, were able to accomplish getting all the mortises and tenons in and everything, and not, because even with a little bit of longer set time with the high glue and so on, boy.
What?
I think you should have invited about 10 of us to come along and stabilize things and help with the glue up. So, but
And well, we walked through 3 times of what had to be done,
right.
And Cindy saw to it that I didn't overlook a mortise or a tenon, and then she also did wipe off the excess glue while I'm thinking about what's next, where to put the clamps, measuring your diagonals. Now the bed wasn't as hard as this chest of drawers. That was extremely stressful because I did that on its side, and I had 44 mortise and tenon joints where glue had to go into every mortise and on every tenon. And so we had another table in the room, and we had those boards laid out in the order in which I wanted to assemble those. So as I was putting one in and making sure it was properly seated, Cindy was going to get the next board. She handed it to me with the tenon down. You know, you had to do it like, we really went through the process again 3 times. So, and I had it to where, okay, mortise goes in, or glue goes in the mortise first, and then on the tenons. Well, you say, it doesn't matter. Well, it did so that I wouldn't overlook one of those steps. And I used this hide glue, and I didn't write down the time in which I finished the glue, but I wrote down the start. But that when I finished measuring the diagonals, and I was happy with it, it took 40 minutes. So that was a long time. But when I glued it up, put my clamps on, measured my diagonals, and one of them was an 1/8 inch longer or off. I said, oh no, where? You know? And I started removing clamps, and I found it easily early. And so, you know, it's like stop. And it's square. But yeah, that's a lot of gluing for a short amount of time. So you have to walk through it. You have to have help, and you have to do whatever you can. Like on the bed, you know, I cut those straps and I clamped it and folded it down, and it held those spindles up in the right orientation. Otherwise, you're not going to get there. Or you could have another person gluing it right along with you. But you know, then you have people kind of getting in your way and that kind of thing. But so, yeah, it's stressful. Well, any more questions? If not, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. That was great. That was great. For one thing that I did want to mention is Bob Castegard over here has got aprons and hats. I forgot that earlier. And if, you know, Dan's got all of his jigs and everything else set up over here. We're getting out a little bit early today, so, you know, look around and ask questions, because that's an amazing build. Thank you.